Hello all, welcome to Paritranaya. In this class, we shall discuss the final part of emergency provisions, that is financial emergency. In the previous class, we have discussed about national emergency and president's rule. So who proclaims national emergency, who proclaims president's rule, what are the grounds and what are the consequences are the various things that we have discussed in the previous class. In this class, we shall discuss about financial emergency. So similar to national emergency and president's rule, who proclaims financial emergency? President of India proclaims financial emergency. Next, what are the grounds for proclaiming financial emergency? So we have already seen the grounds for national emergency and president's rule. Similarly, in order to proclaim financial emergency, these are the grounds. When the financial stability or credit of India or any part of its territory is threatened, then president can proclaim financial emergency. So what do we understand when we say financial stability is threatened? So let us consider an example of inflation. So generally we need to have an inflation. An optimum level of inflation is required for a country. But if inflation goes beyond a particular threshold, then we say that a financial instability has occurred. If such a situation arises, then we call that there is a threat to financial stability of the country. So in order to control that threat of financial instability, what we will do? President will declare financial emergency. Similarly, if credit of India. So what is credit of India is threatened? For example, India has taken loan, but now it is unable to repay the loan. It means the credit of India is threatened. Or we can take another scenario wherein India wants loan, but none of them are willing to come forward to lend loan to India. So at that time also we consider that there is a threat to the credit of India. So in these situations, and also when any part of the territory of India is threatened, so in all these three cases, we say that a situation arises wherein we have to declare what? Financial emergency, and president will do the same. So here there are two amendments, 38th constitutional amendment and 44th constitutional amendment. So these numbers 38 and 44 are not important. So what is important here is judicial review, the term judicial review. So whether the declaration of financial emergency by president is final or can it be subjected to judicial review is the question. So as per the 38th constitutional amendment, so president's decision was final. But in the 44th amendment, it was changed. It said that president's decision is subject to judicial review. So what is judicial review? Already we have discussed in the previous classes. You can just watch back those videos in order to understand what is judicial review. So here we understand that when president declares financial emergency, somebody can challenge that decision either in High Court or Supreme Court. Then Supreme Court or High Court will examine whether the decision taken by the president is right or wrong. If the decision taken by the president is perceived as right by Supreme Court or High Court, then it will uphold the decision. Otherwise, it will reject the decision. So that process we call it as judicial review. So here we understood that the declaration of financial emergency by president is subject to judicial review. Next, approval. We have seen the approval process with respect to national emergency and president's rule. So similarly, when financial emergency is declared, it requires approval of both Lok Sabha as well as Raj Sabha. And this approval has to take place with simple majority. Whereas in case of national emergency, we saw that we require special majority. In case of president's rule, we require simple majority. In case of financial emergency, again we require simple majority, and they have to approve it within 2 months. Okay, within 2 months. And also we have seen in the national emergency as well as in president's rule. What is that? If Lok Sabha gets dissolved without approving financial emergency, then what happens? So what happens? Financial emergency will continue to exist until the newly constituted Lok Sabha meets, and from that day, from the first meeting, we give them a time frame of 30 days. So the same applies to here as well. So if at all you are getting confused, you can just watch our previous videos to get what exactly this statement means. Next, duration. So we have seen that in case of national emergency and president's rule, once we declare an emergency, the emergency continues for 6 months. And if at all we want to extend beyond 6 months, then after every 6 months, we have to approve the extension. But in case of financial emergency, once the financial emergency has been proclaimed by president, then it is indefinite. Okay. So there is no period like 6 months or 1 year. It will continue unless it is revoked. So who can revoke it? President can revoke. So here, no maximum period and no repeated approval, as in case of national emergency and president's rule. Next, approval majority required. We have already seen it is simple majority. So effects of financial emergency. So we have seen the effects of national emergency and president's rule on center-state relations. Similarly, during financial emergency, what will be the change in relationship between center and state? So during financial emergency, executive authority of center extends to observe canons of financial propriety as president may deem necessary. It means center can give direction to states. What kind of direction can center give? So from center, president will give the directions. So for example, president may ask the states that presently our financial condition is not good. So whenever you are spending, so please spend it wisely. So these kind of directions president can give to states. So when I say president here, it is not actually president, it is council of ministers headed by prime minister. Because whatever the council of ministers say, the same has to be communicated by president to the states, okay, to the states. So whatever presidents feel necessary, so those directions can be given by the president to the states, Next, while giving such directions, he may even ask a reduction in salary. So when you are ready, he may ask the states to reduce the salary of the people who are serving in state. He may even ask to reduce the salary of people who are serving in union. Okay, union. And very important, when it comes to reduction of salaries of even High Court and Supreme Court judges can be reduced. So this point is very important. Because generally, we do not reduce the salaries of Supreme Court and High Court judges. Because in a topic in the forthcoming classes when we will be discussing about the judiciary, we come across judicial independence. In order to uphold the judicial independence, we have to ensure that the salaries of the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court are not at the mercy of others. So generally, their salary will not be reduced in order to uphold their independence. But in case of financial emergency, even the salaries of judges of High Court and Supreme Court can be reduced. So this is a very important point to note. Okay, very important point to note. Next, money bill. Money bill reserved for president's consideration after being passed by legislative assembly. So when it comes to, we have already seen about money bill. So when it comes to money bill, who will pass the money bill? Legislative assembly. MLAs will pass it. Okay. So they have the power. So once MLAs pass the money bill, governor has to sign. And it will become act. This is during normal time or normal times. But during financial emergency, every money bill, governor has to reserve it to president. It means just governor's signature would not be sufficient. Every money bill which has been passed by the legislative assembly of the state has to be reserved by the president. Only after president gives the consent, that bill can become an act. Very important. Okay, very important. Next, we can quote few of the statements made by H.N. Kunjuru. So, but it is not important because there are so many quotes spread across different parts of the constitution or different parts of the book. So it is very difficult to memorize each and every quote. So as and when we encounter some of the important quotes while reading the newspaper, we can note them down. So in this context, you can just ignore it. Okay, you can just ignore it. Because here, in order to clear this examination, we also need to understand that we should not become master of all the subjects, but we have to become jack of all the subjects. So in order to become jack, we need to understand the things which are important and the things which have to be ignored. So here, that H.N. Kunjuru part has to be ignored. Now next, criticism of emergency provisions. So whenever there are any provisions, there will be some supporters and there will be some criticizers. So here, supporters are protagonists and criticizers are antagonists. Okay, antagonists. So whether in films they do ask such kind of question, who are the protagonists supporting emergency provisions or who are the antagonists opposing emergency provisions? No, generally such kind of questions will not be posed in films. But these questions, this part it becomes important, especially in mains. So when you are writing a mains answer, your answer should be balanced. So in order to make it balanced, we need to know about both supporters as well as antagonists. So in that context, you can quote these names. So in case of protagonists, Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer said that emergency provisions are life and death of the constitution. Similarly, Mahabir Tyagi, he said that emergency provisions worked as a safety valve. So these things can be quoted in mains answers. Similarly, when it comes to antagonists, you can quote the name of K.T. Shah, T.T. Krishnamachari and H.N. Kunjuru, who are against the emergency provisions. Okay. So with this discussion, we have come to the end of the topic called as emergency provisions. In the subsequent classes, we will be discussing about other important topics related to polity. For all our important updates, subscribe to our channel and hit on the bell icon. Thank you.